So, well, thank you very much for being here with us today. It's been a pleasure for all of us. You actually tweeted yesterday that this was like the 43rd country you are visiting. Yeah. If I ask you which so far has been the better one, you only have one answer, right?
Of course, it's Spain.
Yeah, that's cool. I was not expecting anything else. But actually, it's a pleasure because, sharing some time with the Binance community and the Binance angels who have been very helpful on this event today, it's wonderful. And we've done our best to prepare a nice and thoughtful conversation that will be covering your story, Binance story, the Metaverse, NFTs, and quite a lot of stuff. Let's start by Binance. I mean, you've built a company that became the fastest ever unicorn. Like since the moment you opened your laptop and thought, I'm going to build something new. And the moment that something became a unicorn, it was like 6 months, right? Or something?
Yeah, I think it was about 6 months, yeah.
Like 6 months ago, I was doing the same shit as today. You built a unicorn in 6 months, so what's the secret?
Well, but it wasn't the first 6 months I've been an entrepreneur, right? I've been, building trading system for 17 years before that. So if you look at the total time that, it took me to get lucky in that way, it's actually like 17, 18 years. So,
still, Bloomberg said that Binance, it all started with a poker game. I mean, how true is that? It's Bloomberg said it, not me.
It's not quite right. Binance didn't start with a poker game. But I got into crypto. I first learned about Bitcoin on a poker game. So I used to host games in my house in Shanghai. And Bobby Lee, who used to be the CEO of BTC China, one of the oldest running exchanges in China, and Ron Cao, who's a managing director at Lightspeed Ventures. It's a very small stakes game. It's a very relatively boring game. We all suck. And so they come to my place to play, and they talked about Bitcoin in a very serious way. Bobby Lee was going to quit his job at, I think, Walmart in China. He's a very senior executive in Walmart. He's going to join this two-people company. He's the third guy. He's going to join as a CEO of BTC China. And he's going to help them raise funds from Lightspeed. Lightspeed was tentatively about to invest $5 million into the new company. So Bobby is going to become the CEO of this Bitcoin exchange. This is in July 2013. So I had lunch with Bobby the next day, and Bobby told me that, CZ, you should consider putting 10% of your net worth into Bitcoin. There's a small chance you'll go to zero, then you lose 10%. There's a very high chance that you may go 10x over the next couple of years. I was like, okay, that's pretty serious. Let me learn about this thing. So I read about the Bitcoin white paper, etc. That's mid-2013. By December mid-2013, the Bitcoin price was really around like $70, $100. December 2013, Bitcoin price was $1,200. So you actually did more than 10x in 6 months. And I haven't bought that many Bitcoins back then. So I was like, I'm late. So in December, I went to a conference in Las Vegas, met up with a bunch of guys. At the time, the narrative in crypto is like, if you read the news, it's all about Silk Roads, drug lords, etc. I understood the technology from the white paper quite relatively easily, but I thought for this technology to work, there has to be a community. So I went to a conference in Las Vegas in December 2013, and the same crew that's in crypto today. I met with Vitalik. Vitalik was 19 years old then. He didn't start Ethereum. He was still working for Bitcoin Magazine. So he's an editor at Bitcoin Magazine. But he's pretty into crypto. He's talking about different things. Met with the founder of Litecoin, Charlie Lee. He was much younger back then as well. And then the founders of Ripple, etc. It's a bunch of kids. It's a bunch of geeks. I thought if this is the group of people that's in crypto, I can get in. So after that conference, I quit my job to get into crypto. I also sold my apartment, bought Bitcoins. Yeah, the rest is history.
Actually, I love that part of the story. You sold your apartment to buy Bitcoins. That may sound risky back then, right? Now, last week, Forbes named you one of the 20 richest people in the world. So in the end, it was not that risky, right?
So risk is not the same for everybody. So risk is very individual, tailored. So for example, at the time for me, I always believe for anybody, you should be able to sustain your lifestyle. So you should at least have enough money or ability to earn enough money for the next year, at least, to sustain your lifestyle. So for the money you need to pay rent next month, or pay for mortgages the next 6 months, don't put that money into crypto. For me though, at the time I sold my apartment, and that's all the net worth I had. But and I quit my job, but I very quickly found a decent job in the crypto space, in the what we call the Bitcoin space back then. I also knew that if Bitcoin went to zero, I can always go back to a bank and find an IT job. Tech is not going to disappear. So that's my risk. That's my risk management. So my lifestyle didn't. And after I bought Bitcoin did go down from. I bought it around roughly $600 per Bitcoin. It went down to 200. It stayed there for a year and a half.
Tough year.
Yeah. So I had about 900K from selling the apartment, and it became 300K within 2 months.
Small apartment. No.
Yeah. So, but my lifestyle didn't get impacted. So I was still having this relatively simple but decent lifestyle. So risk is very different for every individual. The best way to measure it is to say, hey, whatever I invest in crypto, if that went to zero, what's the worst case scenario? Is my lifestyle impacted or not? So ask that question instead of all in or not. Just if whatever investments that you have, it went to zero, can you handle it? And if you can, then that's okay. If you can't, don't do it.
So I did some research earlier today, and I checked the assets like the houses, yachts, wherever, owned by the top 50 richest people in the world. Okay, I have Elon Musk has 35 houses. Man, I mean, he cannot remember. I mean, where are they, right? Bill Gates have known 24 houses. Well, I could continue. Plus 3 yachts, plus 2 private planes. Now we got to you, and it says, he said, no assets known, just cryptocurrency. So you are the only one in the top 50 richest people in the world that have not 3 yachts, 3 planes, and 3 houses. That would be the minimum to be accepted to the club, right?
Yeah, I don't need to be in that club.
Yeah, well, you are actually, they invited you, they put you in the list, and your answer was to buy 10% of Forbes. Okay, I you own the club right now, but you're not interested in the same things that the other peers from that list are interested.
I think there's a few differences here. I do own an apartment in Dubai now.
Yeah.
I bought it a couple of months ago. It's an apartment.
Your first apartment after.
Yeah, after a long time. And but after having the apartment, you actually do realize it's not liquid. It's not mobile. I can't take it with me. So now I'm in Spain. I'm still staying in a hotel. And when I go to Paris, I'm staying in a hotel. So, most of those things are not very liquid. They're not, and real estate actually holds value pretty well. But compared to crypto, the opportunity cost is pretty high. But for me, the thing is I need things who have liquidity. I don't like to hold things that don't. We're very lucky that in the crypto world, we have an asset that will hold value very strongly, but also have very high liquidity. When you have that choice and holding real estate and buying, I think the other toys like airplanes, cars, actually do have a van in Singapore. It's a Toyota Veilfire. It's a really boring looking van. I don't have a driver license, so I can't drive sports cars. Yeah, but those things doesn't interest me that much. Whereas I think today I still view myself as an entrepreneur, and even though I don't do very much in Binance, most things are done by other people, but I still am quite busy, having a lot of meetings, and so I still don't have a lot of time to enjoy a very enjoyable lifestyle. So I still use an iWatch. I actually have 2 of them, so that I'm wearing one, the other one's charging, and so it never run out of battery. But other than that, I'm into gadgets. I buy phones, cameras, but they're a couple $100 each. Yeah, so I like to keep things very simple, and so I'm still in the. I guess if you call me successful, I'm a new successful entrepreneur. So I haven't got in the habit of doing all of this fancy stuff.
But the rule number 1 of being a new successful entrepreneur is buying all those stuff. So I think that's also a statement that the one you made, which I think it can be also appreciated by your community.
Yeah. Also have actually that's another reason. Many of the people buy the stuff when they can just about to afford it, or they can. So, for example, you will buy a Lamborghini when you have a couple $1 million, and you can put a couple $100,000 into a Lamborghini, and that's your status. You can buy 35 houses when you can afford it. For me, I haven't realized how much money I have. I don't think that.
$77.6 billion.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I didn't go through that phase where you can afford a car and you can afford like, a couple of sports cars and you really want to do it and enjoy it. And you stay there for a couple of years. That's what you enjoy. Based on the estimates, we got there we kind of skipped that stage. So I didn't develop those habits. And now I don't need to buy a sports car. I can borrow one from any of my friends and, for a week and then give it back to them. I don't have to worry about it.
That's pretty cool. I need to tell you something. My eldest son, I'm a father of three, and my eldest son last week was super sad because accidentally he burned, long story, a €5 bill. You earlier today, like 5 hours ago, you burned $700 million. How do you feel? Like,
so now it's actually not even. So now it's just a number. So I remember. So now we have a team doing all of these things, calculating. It's a real-time calculator, so I don't have to do very much. I actually remember the first quarter, the first quarter when we had to burn about $7 million in BNB. I was nervous as hell. I was double checking, the computer. I was like, making sure I didn't make a mistake. And back then, you're still not used to it. I think I was really, really nervous back then. And then after that, the exchange got bigger. We're moving, when our team moves money between cold wallets or hot wallets, it usually is very often in billions of dollars. They just, boom, it just moves. So nowadays, I think the burning aspect of it is the execution aspect of it is pretty procedural. So it's carried about like this nonchalant way. But I think the fact that we are able to burn $700 million of BNB in one quarter shows the strength of our ecosystem. So that means that many transactions are going through, or way more than that many transactions that go through Binance Chain. So it's a very vibrant ecosystem.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and many people don't understand even the economic. I think most people here will understand the economic impact of burn deflation versus the benefits and the benefits of deflationary currencies. And many people in the world don't understand this concept. So it's really up to us to educate the rest of our friends and families about this, so that they have a chance to survive in the financial world.
Actually, to give some context, what happened is that you built the BNB and initially you set it up like up to 200 million coins, and you decided like the algorithm is prepared to reduce the total amount circulating supply to 100 million. So every few months you burn a part of that. Until now it was a few $1 million. Today you burn $700 million, but this will continue happening. Like understanding BNB will go up to the price. Maybe in a few months you are burning $5 billion with a click.
Yeah, so I think there's an algorithm we designed now to publicly show how fast the burn is. But yeah, when 4.5 years ago, when we launched BNB as a new token, we said there's 200 million total token in supply. We sold about half of it in ICO, and we said we're gonna try to acquire it back and burn almost exactly that amount. So we're gonna burn 100 million over time, and we have an algorithm to burn it. So yeah, it's actually gonna take multiple years. I think it's gonna take 10-15 years or so. But it's progressing. Yeah.
I think there's some curious fact that the other day the Bitcoin number 19 million was mined coin, but still we know it cannot go further than 21 million. But still, a lot of people passed away without giving anyone their keys on cold wallets. So it means the real number of Bitcoins out there that are circulating must be less than 90 million. I would say at best it would be 18 or 17 million. So at some point, we may find ourselves with just 1 million actual Bitcoins in the supply and 20 plus million Bitcoins of dead people that nobody knows the password of. That may be a problem, right?
It's not a problem. It's good for the rest of the guys who have Bitcoin.
Yeah, the ones who didn't die. I mean, that's usually good. Yeah.
So I think at least probably 20 to 30% of Bitcoin are lost forever already. Wow. Satoshi has about 1 million Bitcoin, I think, right? I need to double check the numbers, but I think Satoshi Nakamoto has about 1 million Bitcoins. I assume that he's never going to touch it. And then people lose. Yeah, most people probably lost some Bitcoin somewhere if you're holding your keys. You probably give it to a friend, and then they lost it. It happens all the time.
And what happens when somebody emails you, like, my husband died, I cannot get into his Binance account? This must happen every day, right?
Yes, this happens. And if your Bitcoin's on Binance.com, we have a standard procedure for it. If a next of kin calls us, says, look, my relative passed away, no longer on this planet, we have a standard procedure. We ask for a death certificate, and then we ask for proof of kinship, and then we wait for a period of time. We wait for 30, 60, 90 days to make sure the guy doesn't come back alive. And then we give the funds to the next of kin. So if you store, so this is one part about custody. When we hold your coins, when we hold the coins for the users, if they pass away, the next of kin gets it. If you hold the coins yourself, to do this securely is actually quite difficult. There are ways to do it, but this service is called Dead Man Switch. If you research it, but you got to do it in a secure way. It's really troublesome.
And you also have that security measure of putting the puzzle piece into the spot. I always thought that's not security. It's you laughing at us, like I'm not sure why you make us do that, like moving the puzzle piece. But every time I do this, I'm sure this is not a security measure. It's just you laughing at, like, guys, I like you moving pieces. It does nothing, right?
No. It is actually very important. And actually, that little thing is provided by a third party. It's actually quite costly. It costs us a few cents each time people have to.
A few cents,
something like that.
Like that guy is a millionaire of the puzzle.
Yeah. And there was a saying. There was saying in the community that a new exchange that's not well funded can't even afford that service if they have a lot of users. So, but yeah, it's important because we have to prevent bots. We have a lot of bots attacks. Many people's email, they use the same email on Binance as they're using on other websites. Other websites may leak the databases, or there's many databases being leaked. And the hackers have this kind of databases. They brute force attack. Using the same passwords, different passwords. So we need to put a lot of this things in place. So this is the reason why when you use it, not like obviously for selfish reasons as well, but self-promoting reasons, do use a big exchange. We invest hundreds of millions of dollars, probably billions of dollars now on security measures, where small exchanges just don't have the resources to do this.
And the piece also, the puzzle piece. So could you give us some figures about the typical day at Binance, of course, the total crypto sold and bought, the number of new users, the number of people knocking your door telling, I have a great project, why don't you put my token in your list? I mean, and any figures that probably would blow your mind when you started that today are quite normal.
Yeah, I think, well, number one is the number of users. Today we have about 118 million users, so 118 million users. And I think that's bigger than many countries. Right? So we're not the biggest internet company by number of users, but our users are KYC trading users, very high value users. So that's just on Binance.com. On Trust Wallet, we have about Trust Wallet is installed on about 50 million devices, 50 million devices. So the industry is no longer that small. And then our actually out of the 118 million, about 80% of them were onboarded in the last 12 months or so. So a year ago, we had about 20-something million users, and so we have a very high percentage of active users, which shows like the growth of this industry. Trading volume, most people know, we're like between 10 to 200 billion dollars traded per day. The number of Binance card, the Visa card users are actually in the millions as well. I think that somewhere between 8 to 10 million users just in Europe. So it's a high number, and it's very active. People actually do actively use that card, which is really good. Yeah, Binance Pay is growing as well. We have NFTs growing. NFT, we're not the largest player. BNB chain is by far the most active chain by number of users. The other chains, Ethereum carries more value. There's more higher cost projects running on there. But BNB, of all the blockchains in the world, BNB I think carries about 60 to 70% of the active users based on daily active addresses. So most of the small retail guys are on BNB chain, which is really fantastic. So yeah, there's a lot of very impressive numbers. And I don't know most of those numbers actually. So I'm not involved in any of those projects directly. And yeah, I get a lot of credit for the things they do, but the team does all the work.
It comes with a founder title, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think most of the people in Binance are quite humble. They like to stay behind the scenes. So I'm the only guy sort of out there, and I get all the credit.
Over the last 5 years, you must have, like, since Binance exploded, you must have had any bizarre moments, like those moments you are right there and you say yourself, like, what the hell I'm doing here? I'm having one of those right now, interviewing you. So which is the most bizarre moment you remember? Like Donald Trump calling you, hey, I forgot my Binance password, could you help me? There must be, I mean, we're amongst friends and in streaming and whatever. Yeah, you can, yeah.
There's some really interesting times. Well, there's many really interesting stories. Many of them I can't share just yet. But I met with head of states, and they have a Binance account on their laptop. And I give them a card, say, look, I'm your personal, here's your customer support number. So meeting, there's a lot of really interesting, and go through the airport. Many of the airport security staff actually, I probably being recognized like maybe 20 times by airport security staff.
Okay.
And they say, hey, oh, you're the Binance guy, and let's hope crypto will go up. It's great.
Like it depends on you, right? I hope Bitcoin goes up. I put a lot of money on Binance. Right?
Yeah. So there's many of those really interesting interactions, and there's also like slightly nastier interactions as well. And also, like, I remember, like, a few months after we started, this is not a nasty one, but a few months after we started, the FBI emails me, says we need help.
Bizarre moment.
Yeah, we need help on like, looking at this account. I'm like, I don't know how to deal with that. Like, what should we do here? But my first instinct was to let's collaborate and see what happens. So so there's many things that are very new to me, but we went through a lot of really challenging, interesting issues. But today, I think the main challenge for us is how to organize a loosely organized and very chaotic team of 5,000 people. So yeah.
There's something curious that sometimes Binance is understood as a regulator. Like they ask you to make decisions which should be done by regulators. Last one, just a few days ago on, I think it's Forbes, you were mentioning in an interview that somebody asked you, the Forbes interviewer, why didn't you forbid all Russians to operate on Binance? And you answered, that's not my job, that's the regulators. If the regulators make it illegal, I will make it illegal. I cannot make decisions for the regulators. How do you deal with that, being a regulator or an expectation of a regulator by a lot of people?
I think just do the right thing, right? So a journalist always wanting to be sensational. That's their job. They have a job to sell articles, to sell clicks, etc. So can't blame them. And they try to ask what perceived as a tough questions, etc. And that's nothing against them either. But fundamentally, we need to follow the important first principles. We cannot freeze people's funds. Tomorrow, I may have a different view than to the head of states of Spain. I can't freeze Spanish users' funds, right? Like that's not that. It'd be criminal for me to do that. Yeah. So I think that they're very basic principles, but we do need to follow international sanction rules, and it will also be criminal for me not to do that. So yeah, I think as long as you stick to, I think the world works in very simple ways. There are things which are gray, but the things that are black and white, right or wrong. In the gray areas, we have to dig deep to see what you should do, what you should not do. But something like the sanctions are black and white. If you're on the sanction list, we should never, and we don't have those guys. Those guys doesn't even pass our onboarding test, and they never passed our onboarding test. So when the sanction rules came, we don't have those guys on our platform. And if you're not on the sanction list, we can't freeze your assets. It's very simple, yeah.
Let's move to technology. And I must say, I'm confused. Like, is 2022 the year of the NFT, or the year of the Metaverse, or the year of something like BNB?
I think we are in the year of NFTs, and not quite the year of metaverses yet, where we see a lot of NFTs being built, etc. And I think we've seen the first generation of NFTs, and in the first generation, there's always high fluctuations. So it does mean sometimes the price gets overly high or sometimes the price gets overly low. And in the first generations, there's always high failure rates. If you look at internet startups, right, 90-something% of them failed. But the internet itself stayed, and there's many successful companies that stayed. So I think NFTs are kind of in that range. Metaverse, I've seen many different attempts. I think gamify is there. So people play games to earn, etc. Metaverse, I've not really seen a very popular metaverse yet. So I think we're still in the pre-MySpace era or pre-Friendster era of metaverses. There's many different attempts. We have not seen the one that will last yet. So I think for metaverse, it's still a bit early. And what's going to happen, and as you said, there's going to be something next, and I cannot predict it. If you asked me at the beginning of 2020, I would not have said DeFi would be the next hot thing. And by July, DeFi is all the rage. 2021, at the beginning, if you asked me, I probably would not have said NFTs. In the beginning of 2017, if you asked me what's going to be the next thing in this year, I would not have said ICOs. By July, we're doing ICOs. So it's very hard to predict the industry trends ahead of time. But it's for us, we just monitor the industry, and whatever's trending, we try to help, we try to contribute, or we try to build our own solution to it. So it's the reaction time and ability to execute quickly that's much more important than being able to predict what's going to be the next one.
And about that, how does the innovation process work at Binance? Because you started with the crypto exchange, but then you opened your launchpad, Binance Earn, the Binance Card you were mentioning before, the NFTs marketplace. How does it work to manage like 5,000 people, probably all of them with new ideas of what could come next, and how eventually some of those ideas appear in our homepage when we log in Binance?
Yeah, it's a relatively chaotic process, to be honest. We have so many different products, and we have so many different innovations, and many of them fail, and most of you guys don't see it. And even some of those things you see sometimes do fail as well. For example, we launched Binance Info 3 years ago, and then we shut it down, and then we acquired CoinMarketCap. Most of the innovations come from small teams. They do what they think is best, and the team leaders think that's a good idea to do it. And sometimes when they need money, they come to me and say, "Look, I need this much money." I typically ask, very simple questions like, "How much money do you need? How many guys? For how long? What's your expected ROI? Number of users you can attract, number of growth." They always give some really nice-looking numbers, and we say, "Go for it." And 3 months later, if they couldn't achieve that, we say, "Well, do you want to continue for another 3 months, or do you want to shut it down?" It's very organic. It's very grassroots. Most of the products you see on Binance are not. I was not involved in the entire process. That includes futures, derivatives, NFT markets, BNB chain. Other than Binance.com, most of the products have no involvement from me. So, but it's also better that way, because without involvement from me, anything that involves me becomes slower. It's better if they don't involve me.
At least it doesn't sound like you punish failures. Like the Spanish way of managing innovation is it would be the same. Like, you're the boss, I have an idea, okay, let's try it. If in a year it didn't work, we just cut the project, cut the team, fire everyone, let's try something new with new people. It doesn't look like it works like this in Binance.
We don't punish for failures. We actually encourage failures, and we encourage multiple tries. For example, the guy who led the Binance Info project, afterwards, we canceled that project. For a while, we didn't tell him what to do, and he did Binance P2P. So, but Binance P2P product was done by him. And now he also grown another leader to lead Binance P2P. He's also building our Binance Custody product. Oh. So he's leading multiple products after the failed attempt. So, but if there's any ethical issues or ethical issues, we just fire the guy immediately. If there's ability issues, we may say, look, just go one level down. Go work for some other leader for 6 months, a year, or however long. But if it's just bad timing, bad luck, stuff like that, then we let them try again.
Like, boss, instead of burning 700 million, I put another zero. We burned 7 billion. It happens.
It can't really happen that easily.
Okay. Yeah. Still, that would be like, oh, this is considered an ethical issue. I'm sorry, you go to the list of, no, just kidding. Yeah. So are we closer than ever to a world and a society without physical money? Like not even credit cards, just the paper bill.
I think well. I think we are kind of close, but I think it will still take multiple years for us to really get there. But things could happen pretty quickly when you don't realize. For example, in China, for example, there's no, from 2010, 12, suddenly overnight, everybody's using WeChat, everybody's using a QR code scan. And that's 10 years ago. So similar technology can easily be deployed here, but things could switch pretty quickly when there's an app that really pushes adoption. So for Binance Pay, we have the same feature, but somehow we haven't cracked that adoption curve just yet. But the technology is there. The technology has been there for years. You can use NFC, NFCs. You can just touch and go, right? So the technology is totally there. Just that changing people's habits takes a while. But I think in a couple of years, there could be a turning point where what we call the crossing the chasm, and then suddenly everybody switches. There's really no need for physical money at all. There's absolutely no need. Whether doesn't matter if it's blockchain money or like just traditional banking money, you can all be digital.
You know, when we invited you, there was a lot of people who wanted to attend, and this room has the space we have, but we invited all of them to come to a virtual space we opened, so everybody could join us and follow the stream. And I would like to go to that virtual space on the Metaverse. And you see, all of these people are right now listening to us. You are right there with me in the virtual stage. I created an avatar called CZ. Actually, it's me, but everybody's sending me messages, actually. Sure. Like one of them was like, hey, I love you, CZ, and was asking for some Bitcoins, but it's me. So we offer them, we actually invited them all to make a few questions. And I have them here, the ones who are more voted by the community. This is, by the way, the virtual campus from one of the educational programs that Binance is involved with. More than 600 students from Spain are learning about blockchain and crypto, and they did prepare some questions. The first one is, we are seeing more and more countries that are pointing towards allowing crypto operations, but only in custodial wallets, and make it, or they are planning to make it illegal at some point, to use non-custodial wallets such as MetaMask or Binance Chain Wallet. So what's Binance positioning on this, and how does this fit with the user's freedom to choose where to store their crypto? Right?
I think it's super hard to enforce that because self-custody wallets are just pieces of software. So you can download the software from GitHub. Or any other website, and as long as it's just running on a computer. Those are software. It's very difficult to ban them, to be honest. And when you're holding crypto, you could just, you can generate a public key, and you can generate a private and a public key in many, many different fashions. You don't have to use a centralized exchange at all. You can use any of the software. In fact, if you just download a Python library, you can do that with a couple lines of code. And in countries where they don't allow that, it just means that the developer is going to publish in a different country. You can't, like, there's many developers in Russia, there's many developers in China, in other countries that may or may not follow those rules. And it's very difficult to block, given the way internet works today, it's almost impossible to block that. And so that's just on the technicality part. Second, when you block that, you actually really destroy the local economy. So you will force a talent drain. So your talent will go to different countries, and you will not have this industry in your local economy, which is devastating. If you look at the internet, most of the internet services we use are made by a U.S. company. This is why, if you click on a Google ad, guess what? That revenue goes to Google in the States. If you use Google, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, what have you, if you look at the most valuable companies in the world, they're all internet companies today. But with blockchain, you could encourage local companies to be providing the services for the blockchain. That's hugely valuable for the local economy. If you say software is illegal, then what are you gonna what's gonna happen to your local economy?
Even that could work also with patents. As you may know, Europe, it's actually forbid to register a patent based on software. So it's easier to innovate on software in Europe than back in the US, because it's essentially quite more possible that it will not interfere with the patent. So that may work. Let's go for the second one. You are the founder of the largest cryptocurrency exchange company in the world. So what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs who want to start a project in the crypto or blockchain ecosystems? And do you have any kind of funding for startups or incubators, or when entrepreneurs come to you asking for advice or money?
Yeah. So we do highly encourage it. We do have a fund. We have multiple funds actually. Historically, what we call Binance Labs. We do incubations. We do seasonal incubations. We invite 100 projects, and we select like 8 or 16, and we invest somewhere between a couple $100K to sometimes even a couple $1 million into them to help them build products. That's on the very early stage. We do seed investments into strong projects, and we do venture or late stage investments as well. And in addition to Binance Labs, we can help you strong projects. We advise them on token economics, how to design the tokens. We encourage funders to do a 10-year unlocking period for their funder token portions instead of many funders do 2 years. We think that's too short. 2 years later, they may want to dump the coins on the users, and then they leave the project. That's usually not good for anyone. And then if they follow our advices, they will have much better chances to get listed on Binance, where we do the initial sell for them. We give them the credibility, give them our user base, we promote, and then we give them liquidity going forward, which is really important for projects. So we can do all of those things for projects. We've done that for many projects in the space. If anyone if there's any entrepreneurs want to engage with that, this email called labs@binance.com. Email them and see how it goes. So we also over the last 3 years or so, Binance Labs invested about $130 million. We set up a Binance Lab 2 fund at $500 million, and then but that's just one fund. We have many other Forbes. That single investment is $200 million. So we have a lot of funds that invest in this space. So I think actually in the crypto space, funding is actually not a big problem. There's a lot of funds flowing around. Funding is much easier solved using crypto, and many startups have funds to invest in other startups. We're one of them. But it's actually just building real good products people use. So it's really, many people build very fancy products that people don't use, then you have no value. If you build something that people use, then it has value. So it's that part that's really important.
You could buy Twitter with crypto. That would piss off Elon Musk. That's a double win,
It's okay. Let Elon handle that. Twitter's a public company. It's complicated, and let them handle it. We're focused on crypto stuff.
That's good. What steps, that's the last one, what steps from the community should Spain do to become a crypto-friendly country? I'd say we are far from other countries like Dubai, El Salvador, or even closer, Portugal.
Yeah, I think having clear regulatory guidelines is really important. And also clarity is important, but also friendliness is important. But I think based on my limited interactions so far, I think Spain is really coming up the curve now. So I think the regulatory attitudes changed around the world, at least from my perspective, really changed for the positive over the last year or so. 2-3 years ago, most regulators they're just hoping that crypto will go away on its own. A year ago, they're looking at this industry more intently, and now a year ago they were skeptical in a lot of cases. But now we're seeing multiple jurisdictions want to attract this industry, which is, I think Spain is also in that category. So so I think Spain is very promising. It's one of the it's got neighbors like Portugal is very friendly to crypto. There's some really important practicalities. Portugal is very friendly on crypto taxes. So no capital gain taxes for crypto in Portugal. So which makes that really attractive. And Portugal, Spain, they're all very nice places to live in. The living standard is very high, it's very comfortable, nice food, nice wine, and also good talent. So so all of those things are, but I think it's still early days. I think who's going to be the most crypto-friendly regulator, I'm not sure. But the regulators also play a FOMO game, right? So nobody wants to be the first country to say, hey, I'm gonna embrace crypto fully. So El Salvador did that, and they took a lot of heat. They still have a lot of skepticism and criticism, etc. But once now Dubai issued a crypto licensing framework. Bahrain did that as well. Abu Dhabi gave us a license. Now suddenly all the regulators want. Now you're no longer the first, so you don't have to take the risk of say, look, I'm the first one to do this if something goes wrong. Now for the regulators today to publish a crypto regulatory guideline, they no longer have that first mover risk. They said, look at all these other countries. United States issued the executive order issuing central bank digital currencies. And US actually have the most friendly banking support for cryptocurrency exchanges. In the US, Binance US, Coinbase, the exchange can deduct from the user's bank account automatically each month without the user touching a button. So, and that kind of banking support today is not available in most other places. So US is supporting cryptocurrency, and you have a cryptocurrency exchange IPOing on NASDAQ, which is also a strong statement. So now you're no longer first. It's better to embrace this technology. It's better to embrace this industry. So that first mover risk is removed, and now everyone wants to move quickly. And no one wants to be last. Imagine if you're the last country to adopt cryptocurrency policy guidelines, people will vote you out of office. So I think over the future, in the next few years, we'll see elections being important, crypto being an important topic in elections, economic growth being an important topic that will be tied to crypto in elections, etc. So I think we'll see a much more stronger adoption.
That's cool. Let's move back to the real world and leave the metaverse for a moment. And I would like now to start talking about art and how does it mix with technology. We've been on the metaverse, now we are back on the stage, and we've been wondering if art can be mixed with technology. But before you answer, we've been trying to replicate it and see what can be done when we try to mix the most traditional art with the most modern technology. I'd like you to see the result. That's it. So
I think that's much better than our chatter.
yeah. I asked them for an hour playing, but it was too expensive, so I said let's no. Just kidding. Well, thank you very much, gracias, chicos. So I would say art can be mixed. Like the most traditional art can be mixed nicely with technology. At least that's my conclusion. But when it comes to NFTs, for example, still I feel like there is a lot to be seen. What's your opinion on all this?
Absolutely. So I think art, anything can be mixed with technology. I think technology is an enabler. Technology is not exclusive with anything. It's not exclusive with traditional art, music, anything. People also ask a question about, is Web 2 and Web 3 companies, are they mutually exclusive? Like, no, come on. Web 2 companies can use crypto. And NFTs specifically, I think we're just at the very tip of the iceberg on exploring what NFTs can do. Today, the NFTs are very simple in the form they represent digital art, physical art, or content, or some other thing. And I think this part will continue to grow. I think we're only at the tip of the iceberg. I think we're just beginning to see that more and more artists. Well, number one is the artists now using NFTs can reach a global audience that can bid on their art. And as a result of that, they do get much better prices or much better value. And because of that, then more and more artists are coming in, and then we're getting better art. So I think the performance we just had here is fantastic. So, and this improves the entire quality of the art, what you call a sector or industry. But beyond that, there's so many other things NFTs can do. For example, ticketing, like entering into a show, a event. That should be done by NFTs, and it should be done with a touch or a scan of a QR code. And we don't need physical paper. And then even after you attended a event, that tickets may still have residual value that you can realize on the secondary markets. For example, if you've seen a very rare show and if you're in a special seat and you have some special interaction, people may want to collect that. I don't know. And then we are working with many sports teams or when they sell merchandise, for example, like people who are in Indonesia, in China, when they're buying the merchandise, they may be buying the fake ones, and the clubs don't get any benefit out of that. Whereas if you sell the merchandise through NFTs or have an NFT authentication mechanism to verify that merchandise is actually real from the sports teams, and you're supporting the sports team, you're buying the authentic merchandise, and then so all of these things, there's many new use cases that have not been done yet. And some of them are very simple. It's not that hard to do, right? So you sell NFTs, and then people can use the NFTs to come to your official store to exchange a merchandise. Or you do it the other way. You sell merchandise with an NFT on, they can scan a QR code and verify it. Both workflows work. So we're just at the beginning, yeah.
I would say that art requires education. Like in order to play piano like the artist we just have here, I would have, I mean, at least me, I would have to spend like 20 years practicing even the violin. Still, there is some weird feeling around there that anybody can build an NFT collection. I was now, while you were answering, I opened fever.com and I searched for NFT. Look at this. I will create a unique NFT collection, 5,000, 10,000 items, $200. So you don't need to be an artist to build something like this. So how's the process of deciding what's valuable and what's not? And I'm asking you because you actually have to make that decision sometimes when you expose projects to your community, right?
Yeah, so we provide the process for price discovery. We don't decide so the community, the market decides the price. So for something to have price, you only need one person in the world who's willing to pay for it. But if you like one person, you do not have very good liquidity. If that person suddenly decides not to buy it, then that thing no longer has any value or price. To have good liquidity, you have not a large number of people who wants to buy it, and then they sometimes can bid, and the sellers and bidders figure out the price. In the case of an NFT, the seller is usually one person. So the market decides the price, not us. We provide the mechanism for the market to decide that. For NFTs or even for crypto, anyone can create a new millions of NFTs. Just because you created it doesn't mean it have value. The same thing with coins. You can create a new coin today in a few seconds. Just because you create a new coin doesn't mean that coin automatically has value. People have to want it. And when do people want it? Is when people have to use it or people want to hold it. So creating the coin or creating the NFT doesn't create value. Is when you create value is when you create something that people want. So today, if I create an NFT, it's probably not going to be very valuable. But when a real artist creates something that people wanted, then it's valuable. Yeah.
You could try build your NFTs. Probably somebody would buy it. I mean, just to try,
Yes,
FOMO, right?
So then there is a little bit of FOMO value today, but
you do a rug pull actually also. That would be fun.
Yeah. So people who have some exposure, credibility, reputation, then whatever they create could have value. But if I just create random stuff that I sell it, very soon my reputation will go to the floor, and that's not what I'm going to do. Yeah.
You mentioned reputation, and there is something terrible about our whole world, like blockchain, crypto, which is that when somebody, like one person creates a scandal, it affects the whole ecosystem. Like if one bank creates a scandal, that scandal will remain to that bank. That nobody will stop believing in banking. However, when a famous artist does a rug pull, when a platform of NFTs, somebody discovers that 90% of the buy-sell operations were done by the owners, or when a crypto exchange gets a huge hacking and somebody discovers it was because they were not really applying basic security measures, it doesn't affect to that person, to that collection, to that platform. It affects the whole ecosystem. How can we avoid this? Maybe with more education?
Yeah, so it is a very real problem. I think number one is education. Education, educating users in a myriad of ways. Binance provides Binance Academy. We have Binance MasterClass. We are launching a Binance scholarship. And in the community, when we advertise, we don't ask people to buy stuff. We actually tell them to manage the risk, etc. Don't follow celebrity advices, etc. So the education part is really important. And there's, but still, it takes time to reach everybody, and you probably will never reach everybody. And then there's the enforcement part, dealing with problems afterwards. Binance actually have helped even in the DeFi space where Binance.com doesn't operate. We have worked with law enforcement, project teams, security companies to return at least $200 million plus of funds that was rug pulled. For example, when a funder says he's going to quit and he takes all the funder tokens and he dumps on the market, we use blockchain analysis and we combine our user database to see, hey, if any of the funds are linked to any of the accounts that we have. And for the accounts we have the KYC information, and we can exert pressure on the person through. Sometimes we work together with law enforcement. We have helped at least 10 plus projects, and I remember one project, within a week of the founder running away with $30 million, we forced him to give back all the $30 million. And we didn't publicize this because we want to protect the founder's anonymity. So we didn't publicize that much. So that's the enforcement part of it. Blockchain is very traceable. It's actually pretty hard to do bad stuff using blockchain. Today you can get away with some money, but sooner or later we might be able to track you together with law enforcement, etc. So that enforcement ability needs to be more enhanced, and we need to work closely with law enforcement regulators all around the world to do this. I think we're just at the beginning, but guess what? The blockchain doesn't disappear. Even 5 years later, 10 years later, we can once this effort is ramped up, we can still track it. So there's multiple aspects of it, but the most important thing is fundamentally people have to learn to manage your own risk. Don't just invest in, don't buy NFTs just because some other guy says buy the NFT. Don't follow another guy's advice on Twitter to invest in a coin because that guy may be in a different situation than you are. That guy might be a fantastic trader, but his trading strategy is different from yours. So all of those things we need to educate users. And when you see a tweet on Twitter saying send me 1 Bitcoin, I'll send you 10 back. Come on, it just takes time to learn this stuff, right?
With your photo, just not verified account, not suspicious, right? Yeah,
absolutely,
10 followers.
Yeah.
It could happen.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you just mentioned what we should be afraid of when we are surfing the Web3, but also through the Web3, education is also changing. Like entrepreneur.com was mentioning a few months ago that decentralized education, they say, will reshape learning and the global economy itself. So it looks like when we understand education, not as sharing some new knowledge being received by 20 same people that we are in the same class, in the same country, probably in the same neighborhood, so probably on the same richness level or social class. But you exchange knowledge with 1,000 people from different countries, some magic could happen. So it decreases the power of a professor and it increases the power of collective intelligence. Do you think this has any future? Because definitely decentralized education is linked with blockchain technology in lots of ways.
Yeah, so I think that definitely has a huge future, especially through COVID. Now we're doing more distant learning, online learning, etc. Some learning is done better in person, in your lab, you have friends, other students, etc. But a large part of the learning can be done remotely or online, and many of the learning can be easily multiplied. You don't need to have a live professor to teach many of the subjects. You can watch a video, and if you have questions, the tests, the exercises can be done in a way. We see many learning apps that are very interactive in the way they teach you. And the other problem is today, even what we call the traditional school education systems, most of them are not great. Most of them are too static. The topics are 20 years old. How many high schools teach about blockchain? Right, none. They should teach this in elementary schools. The technology's been around for 12, 13 years, right? So and how many teach the latest programming languages? Probably not a whole lot. So the education system needs to evolve quickly, and the world is evolving more quickly. So with blockchain, I think we can totally improve the way remote learning is done, remote certification, remote tests, all of these things to be done. And then this can also allow us to reach much further corners of the earth. For example, Binance MasterClass, which I mentioned earlier, before COVID, the year before COVID, we ran 250 classes each day. So 250 classes that year. So that means one every working day. Each class is attended physically by 300 to 500 people. So, and then once COVID happened, we turned it online. Each class is actually attended by 1,000 to 2,000 people. So over the last 2 to 3 years, we probably educated about 600,000 people about blockchain, about crypto, etc. And so far we've been piloting in Africa, and we're bringing that into Portugal. On the Portugal's government education section about crypto, they use the Binance Academy content. So with our permission, of course, we're very happy to give that permission. Our content is free anyway. So a lot of this can happen, but I think we're at the very beginning part. So we see Udemy, a number of other online educational efforts being taken off. They have not really fully leveraged the power of crypto yet. Learn to earn, all these other incentives. You gotta pay at some time, but there's many different ways to do this, and I think blockchain Web3 can really enhance it.
Let's give a name to this. We have gamify, learnify,
edufy.
Oh, edufy. Yeah. Learnify sounds cooler. Okay, you win. So we've also seen countries like El Salvador, to do a step forward and officially, massively adopt Bitcoin. They built a Bitcoin city, the Bitcoin beach, with some cool houses. I mean, it was probably the first so public and so loud step towards this direction. It looks like more countries will go on. But how do you feel when a country does this massive step and not only accepts Bitcoin or crypto, but embraces and empowers people to use it? And by the way, El Salvador's president, he even follows the memes. When Bitcoin goes down, he puts a picture of him working on a McDonald's, like my Bitcoin destroyed. So he's like in the mood of all of this.
Yeah. So I met him recently, like about a month ago. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and he's a very progressive thinker. He understands technology. He understands blockchain in a very deep way, and he told me that he thinks politicians should tweet differently from the way they do today. So they should engage with the community. They should embrace the memes. They should be more vocal on social media. They should be more provocative to provoke different thoughts, different discussions, different debates, etc. And he's very bold. He's very confident. So he's very bold in taking big steps that I believe will be hugely beneficial for El Salvador in the future. Even though short term there are many problems that it has to be dealt with. There are fluctuations. There's just infrastructure issues. Which wallet do you use, right? How do you teach the normal person? Because 90-something% of the people still doesn't know how to manage Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. How do you handle that adoption? There's a lot of technical difficulties. There's a lot of education, and he's also getting quite a lot of pushback. But I strongly believe that, given that they're such early adopters of this technology, they will attract a lot of the industry. I went there. We are now establishing a customer support center there. We will hire somewhere between 40 to 50 people in the next month or so. Locally they have a game problem. Many youngsters are involved in games. We believe that having a stronger economy, having more jobs for the youth is the best way to fix that problem long term. Reduce that problem long term. So, and having a strong economy, using a newer form of money will really help build the economy. So I think it's great. I believe if we look back in 10, 20 years, he'll be remembered as a hero.
We've seen the power of Bitcoin to help on its brightest side of society, but recently we've also seen how Bitcoin can help on our darkest side. On the Ukraine war, Ukraine actually empowered people to adopt crypto before the banks would potentially shut down. And this helped a lot of people. getting out of the country and being able to access their assets, etc., being there. I think that we should actually learn from bad times to see what can we empower on good times, don't you think?
Absolutely. So I think crypto, this Ukraine war taught us a lot about crypto, actually. There's a few different things. Number one, Ukraine asked for the donations in crypto. They did not ask it in euros. If they asked it in euros, they'll probably get a lot less. Yeah. And if you look at the blockchain for the donations, many of the donations are $50, $10. You can't do that with going through banks. And so that demonstrates the global power of fundraising using blockchain, using crypto. That's one aspect of it. And then in the early days of the crisis, the banks ran out of money. The banks, you see lines outside the banks. The banks don't have it demonstrates the traditional financial systems have limitations when in this type of crisis situations. And also we see that the Russian ruble crumbling, etc. So you also taught us fiat currencies they're not like we think they're stable, but they're not. There are boundary cases actually that are not so boundary. It happens. So I think crypto now, so Ukraine has very quickly adopted cryptocurrencies during these tough times. And I think this is going to be good for the country going forward as well. There are also other accusations about crypto in this time, like can Russia use this for avoid sanctions? Again, I repeat this many times. It's basically impossible. Crypto is very traceable, and also this stats from last year. China Analysis published a report that last year only 0.15% of the crypto transactions may be potentially related to illicit activities. 0.15%, whereas in the traditional fiat world, it's 2 to 5% of the world GDP. That's like trillions of dollars. So you compare those two numbers. So 20 times less people use in crypto are for illicit activities. So that law enforcement should encourage people to use crypto because it's actually much harder to use for illicit activities.
Actually, I don't know you, but if I had to do any criminal activity, I would ask to be paid in a bag full of dollars, like non-serial, non-traceable, non-marked dollars, like the movies, not in crypto, because I would have the money there. But the moment we saw it recently, like $600 million a couple, and you always imagine them like in a dark reef, and it was a nice couple. They just stole like 600 million, and they were caught the moment they wanted the real money.
Exactly.
So in the end, it's still better to a bag full of cash rather than Bitcoin. We've talked about governments, countries, but there's still big like tech giants, traditional, maybe Web 2 tech giants, not traditional. But all of them are evolving, are knocking to your door in different ways. Like Spotify announced they will be building NFTs. Facebook changed their name to Meta. I'll give a giant list. Twitter accepting the NFT if you pay $3 per month, by the way. So how do you feel like them coming to this world most of the times without embracing blockchain, without understanding or embracing crypto, but yet trying to pick some of the publicity? Are they friends? Are they enemies? Are they frenemies?
I think there's no enemies in crypto. Anybody who comes into crypto is better for crypto. The industry gets larger, and that's better for everyone. And today we're so early in the adoption phase that we need more and more people to come. Anybody who comes should be a friend. So we need anybody who, like Twitter, accepting crypto. All of these things help adoption. We're not in a saturated market. In fact, we're so early. The market's like, I think adoption is less than 3% globally. And in terms of net value, is less than probably 0.5%. In this, we want as many people to come in as possible. It doesn't matter if it's, traditional large giants, Web 2, Web 1, traditional companies. In terms of potential evolution of the industry, both things are possible. It's possible for existing established giants leveraging their heavy user base, the existing resources to become the leaders of the new industries. It could also be that the traditional companies do not adjust really well. They're not crypto native, and startups in the crypto space continue to grow very quickly. So both could happen. I mean, if you look at the traditional industries, Google couldn't do social media. Microsoft couldn't do search engines. So there's many other examples, right? So both could happen. The jury is not out, or the jury is still out. So, but we think that the more people come in, the better.
Microsoft is still trying with Bing somewhere.
Yeah, they still have Bing.
Yeah, I mean, not very.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're the BlackBerry of search engines. Anyway, so just to finish, we're going to finish with some fast, stupid, but yet interesting questions. So you do have a superpower, right? You tweet something like, "Hey, look, this crypto or altcoin looks pretty cool," and in 10 minutes you make the founders millionaires. How do you deal with that? Because you tweet something and that project, that crypto, suddenly it gets a boom of 3,000%.
Yeah, but I can only do that like a couple of times before I lose all my the most important asset that I have. Which
every
is
superhero has a limit on their superpower. You can use it twice. I will get that. Are you planning to use it soon?
No.
Okay.
So with the change, so we try to be project neutral. So this is why I don't tweet about, I don't recommend projects, I don't recommend coins. So this is why we try to be very neutral. And also, I'm always bullish. So I try not to swing. So this is something that Elon Musk does. He sometimes is pro Bitcoin, the next day he's not.
Yeah.
It causes market swings. I think he's doing that completely innocently. He just doesn't think about it. But it does, given his influence, it does impact markets. I have much less impact, but like if I do that, probably also have some impact. Everybody has some impact. So I try to be always bullish. So this way, I'm always one way. So I don't swing.
So my next question about which altcoin do you recommend me to buy? You're not going to answer.
Yeah, BNB.
Right? Okay, yeah. That's not an altcoin. It's like the second biggest coin out there, right? Okay. Considering BNB an altcoin makes you humble, I would say.
We're a startup company.
Yeah, you're a startup. So yeah, don't answer it here. There's a lot of people. I'll just open my Binance app back there, and okay. So I think that we've been having a pretty nice time. So are you Satoshi Nakamoto? Just before we finish.
No, I'm absolutely not.
Okay. If you were, what would have been your answer?
Sorry.
If you were, what would be your answer?
I wouldn't be here if I was him. Yeah. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that guy has a much better time. Like he wrote a piece of paper. Well, he wrote a 9-pager, coded for 6 months, and then left in this $3 trillion industry.
But still, his million Bitcoin is still there in a wallet. We are always checking it, right? I mean,
no. I think he will never need that money. Guy that smart, he is making money elsewhere. I don't think he cares about money either.
Yeah. Maybe he forgot the password.
Yeah. Possibly.
That would be fine. That would be fine. Anyway, so okay, you are not, but you know who he is. Okay, don't answer me. Anyway, it's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a great pleasure. Let's thank him the way he deserves. Thank you very much.